The Americans brought sweeping changes in the culinary mindset of the Filipino. The convenience that American technologies brought to the Philippines revolutionized the food culture because it was now easier to source out food and cook food. World War II altered the landscape of Filipino cuisine forever. Our country had to endure 3 long years of food scarcity and deprivation.
During World War II, the international network of trade was severely disrupted because many of the countries around the Philippines, even the suppliers and markets that form part of the food and trade network of the Philippines, were affected by the war. The needed food supplies within the Philippine archipelago and even within the global network has been disrupted.
When the Japanese invaded, we were forced into withdrawal from American foods. Imports from America were stopped abruptly.
So for example, rice was not being transported now because of the problems in transportation. And even farming was disrupted. So we have a decline in the supplies of staples and the needed food products. Gradually, people shifted to subsistence economy, making use of the available food products in their own backyard.
During the war, the Filipino cook did not have time for slow, carefully crafted meals. Eating was all about survival and subsistence.
So there was a major interruption on the lives of the people during the Second World War. And I remember my parents were telling me about the kind of food that they ate. The most horrific part is like they would like try to catch field mice and eat it. Life was really miserable during that period.
So even those things that you would not think of eating, like animals such as cats and dogs, maybe even rats, were being utilized as food. And then root crops, which can be readily found in their own backyards, were being used as staples.
The necessity to find something edible and abundant compelled the Filipino to revert back to time-tested methods of obtaining food.
They would use talbos ng mangga, the young leaves of mangoes, or the young leaves from siniguelas trees, and they make it into sinigang. And they would eat the leaves. Because the food was so scarce during that time, they succumbed to really forage and make their own bagoong, they make their own talbos ng kamote, or for that matter, if they're lucky, there's kamote, there's yam, and there's even ube.
And then other luxuries like coffee would be exchanged for toasted rice that were pounded and then made as a beverage. So many things were being disrupted during the war, and this also affected the lifestyle and the food that were in use at that time.
But our engagement with the Japanese only reconnected us with our Asian roots. And we were forced to revisit indigenous recipes because American ingredients were not available at the time. And there was a resurgence in the popularity of our own kakanins. As the Filipinos fought for their independence, food played an integral part in the war movement.
During the Japanese occupation, there's one notable person who's really played a very important role. She's a food hero. She's actually my hero. Her name is Maria Y. Orosa. She studied in America as a pensionado during the time of, like in the 1920s. And then when she returned to the Philippines, she worked in the Bureau plant industry. And what's interesting about her was during the war, she actually fed the guerrillas. And she discovered this rice brand, and she called it Tiki Tiki.
Tiki Tiki was considered a magic food. It was cooked in a rice porridge with sweet potatoes and its leaves.
This is like a very, very rich in protein and in vitamin B complex. And when the Filipinos and Americans were interned in UST, because UST was made into a concentration camp by the Japanese, she would help smuggle that rice bran, and it's inside the nodes of the bamboo. And it was brought inside the concentration camp in guise of a construction material. And what's interesting about it, she actually saved so many people's lives.
Maria Orosa also studied Philippine botanicals and found different uses for her local produce.
She would find ways how to preserve fruits and vegetables. And she would make fantastic recipes of acharas, of halaya, of jams. And she'd, encourage planting of seedlings all over the provinces. And she made a list of various fruits and fruit trees which is abundant in our country. What's very interesting about Maria Rosa, she also invented the banana ketchup, among other things.
It was also during this period that one of our most loved Filipino desserts enjoyed a transformation of sorts. One significant culinary innovation during the Japanese time is our own halo-halo, which later on became more special with the addition of American ice cream. Halo-halo means mix, so it's a mix of ingredients which you have to mix before eating. Interestingly enough, the idea of halo-halo seems to be brought in by the Japanese before the onset of World War II.
There were stories wherein in the 30s you have like Japanese moles coming in to the country and disguised as halo-halo vendors. Of course, like in Japan, they have a halo-halo tradition, but it's not really halo-halo, but it's essentially adzuki beans. It's sweetened mongo, the red mongo beans, mixed with ice and milk and sugar.
The Japanese ice delicacy was given a Filipino spin by enterprising townspeople. Halo-halo is a quintessential summer dessert. It's basically preserved fruits topped with crushed ice and drizzled with fresh milk.
To some of my research, halo-halo was already here like as early as 1924, where Digman Halo-halo was actually instituted in Bacoor. And Digman is a barrio. It's not a surname as we all thought it was.
Semantics reveal another Philippine innovation to the original Japanese dessert.
Funny thing, when I discovered Digman was actually an old name for a particular species of gelatin or gulaman. This is a seaweed where they make gulaman. And one of the main ingredients of halo-halo is actually gulaman. So I find a connection between Barrio Digman and the Digman seaweed, which made into gulaman, and then the halo-halo itself.
Local ingredients gave it even more of a Filipino flavor, transforming it into a Philippine dessert altogether.
They use coconut cream instead of milk in their halo-halo. And they use rimas or breadfruit and kundol as one of the ingredients for halo-halo. And of course, like you have the traditional beans, the langka, the leche flan, the halayang ube. But I think halo-halo has evolved. We have a tradition of halo-halo which we share with our other Southeast Asian neighbors.
Trials and tribulations have a way of bringing out qualities that have remained dormant, hidden. For the Filipino, it brought back the ingenuity of his ancestors, of how they made use of their environment to feed themselves and innovate external cultural influences as they came across.